I don't know what else to say, Frankie. Shall I just what the one thing I do like to stress, I think, is that this workshop works best. It's interactive, so we're all sharing back. There'll be questions posed, and it works best when everyone just takes a couple of minutes rather than like a 4-minute share back to each thing. If we can just keep it fluid and get as many people in as possible, and we want to hear from as many as possible. Frankie, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, hi everyone. Frankie, I'm an addict. And just to reiterate what Paul's saying, on the YouTube site, we've got about, I think it's about 8 workshops now, 9 workshops. And if we start to come in and thank you for your share and stuff like that, it's just so that everybody gets a chance, because sometimes you can get fired up, hopefully, with this workshop, because we're a different meeting. We're not a it's an experience, strength and hope, but the experience, strength and hope we'll do this week will be around sponsorship. Now, the way the program works is, if I share something about sponsorship, maybe some of you guys might relate, or you might hear something, and then later on in recovery, a few years up the road or something, you might go, oh, wow, I've heard of that before, or something. So to be very geeky like I can be, sponsorship's mentioned 21 times in the basic text. Now, I'm not one of those flash people who says that in a face-to-face meeting, like you'll get people say. I've got an iPad next to me and I type sponsorship into it and it comes up and it tells me it's 21 times in the basic text. So I'm not trying to show off. I use tools to try and do stuff, you know, and try and learn about my recovery, because if I can understand the text and if I can understand the meaning of sponsorship, and if I can understand the difficulties around sponsorship, and if I can get a sponsorship leaflet and read that, especially if I'm new, and sometimes if I've been around a while, I have to reread sponsorship, because I'll share some of my experience, because I've been a sponsor for a while, and also, just to kick us off, and also I've been a sponsee, and I've also had to go through the thing where my sponsor has become problematic, and I took guidance from the book, and I've had to go and talk to his sponsor for support, because that's what I've learned, how sponsorship works. And I thought originally sponsorship was something that I could download on my sponsor and tell him all the bad stuff. Well, that's part of it, but generally the sponsors to help me understand the program so I can help somebody else. Yeah, so I want to make this fun, and we normally have some fun here. So we're going to be after you guys experience. So when you share and you come on, if you've come on for each question, don't forget to give somebody else a chance. You know, because sometimes we have a tendency, being self-centered, self-obsessed people, we have the answer each time. I want to jump on. Sometimes I've found with these workshops that people who've spoken to me months later, when I see them, or a couple of weeks later even, the ones sometimes who sit and listen seem to get more from it, because it's not about being the best recovering addict. You might hear a lot of competition or a lot of know-it-alls, but the main thing is one addict helping another is without parallel, and being that without parallel is we can help each other a bit better than the key worker, the treatment centre worker, our parents, the local counselling service, because we just have that additional thing of being able to relate. You know, I know what it's like to spend my money when really I should be paying my rent and stuff like that. So, right, that's hopefully enough ad-libbing from me. I'll share an example about sponsorship. As usual, we'll put Paul on the spot, and maybe Matt at one point. I can't see, where's our dictionary person? She's not here today.
She's not here this evening. She's got some.
Okay.
But maybe
So,
maybe Barry can do the dictionary stuff tonight.
Happy to sub in on that.
Brilliant, nice one, Barry. Because we will have some words. I'll tell you what, Barry. If you look up sponsorship for us, we'll come back to you in a few minutes. But first off, let's start off, and then we'll have 5 people to share difficulty on getting a sponsor. So I'll start off with mine. Came to NA in 92, left prison NA in 94, came to the meetings. Every person I kept asking, wasn't available. I realised I didn't know how to ask properly. I was going up and asking people if they'd be my sponsor, and they were saying yes. And then I was going to the CAF with them, and they hadn't done any step work, and they just wanted a mate or someone to have something to eat with. And I went through that repetitively. And after about 10 years of that stuff, I landed on this guy one day, and I asked him, had he been through the 12 steps? Was he available for sponsorship? And would it be possible we could sit down and talk? But for that 10 years beforehand, I remember asking one guy, and he said to me, yeah, I'll be your sponsor. And I went round to the kebab shop with him. He didn't stop fucking talking for 2 hours. I didn't want to ever go near him ever again. So I've had some difficulties. Let's hand it over to Paul. You got any difficulties? 3 minutes, Paul. No more, no less.
My name's Paul. I'm an addict. I suppose coming in, it was. I think I was really looking for someone who was, really programmed up. I suppose that was the thing I was looking for. Someone that shared and program and meetings, any program that is, not any other program. And I suppose I didn't even know when I first came to NA to almost interview a sponsor and say, have you been through the 12 steps, critical, because it's quite common in the area that I'm in that, people just work a few steps and that's it, and just park up and stay clean, so, but that doesn't stop them taking people who want to go through further on in the program, which seems a bit kind of idiotic. So I didn't even know to ask those simple questions. So I suppose it was a difficulty in plucking up the courage, having asked the wrong person, and I'm now bonded to this person for life and I don't want to be. How do I break up with them? And because if you ask someone and say, I want you to be my sponsor, they'll say, have you got anyone? I'll say, yeah, I've got this one. And they'll say, right, once you part company, we can maybe do something. So I've procrastinated on that stuff, trying to pluck up the courage for weeks. But it has to be done, doesn't it? Because it's like somebody said to me, look, Paul, this is life or death for you. You can't mess about with things that are as important as sponsorship. And again, I've been through a difficult relationship with the sponsor that I came in with. And then I think I'll finish on this. The most important lesson for me is finding the right person and not feeling that I'm in some way obligated. Like I say, we're fighting for our lives here. So it's really important that we get someone we feel comfortable with, that we're learning with, that we're evolving with, and who are maybe not pushing us into aspects of any which are not the program, or don't, or aren't codependent and want to just like either co-sign my bullshit or talk about service or be a counsellor of some kind. It's program first every time. So yeah, that's my bit.
Thank you, Paul. I know, Margaret, we've got to row you into this because I've heard Margaret share about sponsorship and how difficult it can be. So sorry to stick it on you, Margaret, but could we have, say, 4 people to come and share about difficulties in getting a sponsor? We're going to try and go through a process until we end up like sponsors God, basically. So yeah, over to you, Paul.
Okay, Georgina, please come in and give us a couple of minutes.
Thanks. I'm Georgina and I'm an addict. Yeah. I suppose the only difficulty that I've had in getting the sponsors, because I got in my own way. I've had serious CPTSD, fear of public speaking performance, felt like the returning performing elephant, returning to the circus every time I went to a meeting, and I did a lot of self-sabotage. Since I left Detox Centre in 2002, up until now, I've done the steps several times, at least 5 times with different sponsors. But I just did it from the top of my head, just to put it all down on papers, just to see if the steps were working for me, if I could get out of my CPTSD, which I didn't know at the time was just that. I've processed a lot of my CPTSD for another 12-step fellowship, and I'm more able to articulate and process things. But in the long run, I've become so stuck within my own head, and I do suffer from chronic pain, which is not conducive to recovery, that I've given up. I haven't been open and willing. I've felt a lot of contempt for people, especially at the meetings, because of my own stinking thinking. But once I get there, you know, I feel completely different. And I've realised I've not been open and willing, and I just come to meetings so my inner child can dump, and so I can have my so I can get to my higher power. My inner child is a gateway to my higher power. But on the other hand, it's a very selfish and mean way to behave towards myself, and I that contempt kind of turned around and backfired on myself, and I got very stuck. I've just recently found someone in a meeting that I can relate to. That's NA meeting, illness in recovery, which I didn't really know there was any such meetings. Not at all, and it's making all the difference in the world. I'm not just going to one meeting and procrastinating and shit scared what it is that I want to share, because remember, I had fear of public speaking and performance, and it all comes back down to the psychology of depressive illness on top of more trauma. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
okay. Margaret, please come in.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Margaret, I'm an addict. I was a bit late coming in, sorry. Is this about difficulties with sponsors?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I chose somebody very quickly about 3 weeks into recovery, because I was desperately struggling to get through just the next minute of the day, basically. And it was supposed to be on a temporary basis. It was very intense. And a few weeks in, there were various things that happened that I really wasn't, it felt quite a manipulative relationship, and intense, like I say, and I didn't look forward to phoning her at all. And I eventually thought, this isn't working, this is doing more damage than it's helping. So I stopped that relationship, and then I went a few months, and I kind of wanted to try and really gel with somebody before I picked the next one. But I was very aware that I'd left myself adrift at the same time. So I was kind of a bit worried about that. And there was somebody who was instrumental in getting me into the rooms to start with that I wanted to ask, but I didn't have the guts to. They didn't do Zoom. So I'd only seen them twice since I came in last year. And I like I say, I didn't have the guts to pick up the phone. And then I bumped into him randomly one day, and I took that to be a higher power moment. But this one is completely the opposite. It's, whereas the first one was very intense, this is really laid back, and I'm not sure if it's what I need. That's my dilemma now. I don't know if this is the right relationship for me. I don't know what I want and what I need. I don't know what's God's will and what's self-will, and I'm confused with that. He's not giving me the impression that he's making a commitment. There's never been that clear message that he's going to be there for me right the way through. Like I say, it's very laid back, and I don't know whether that's me getting in the way of that. I wanted to, all we've done is 2 of the steps so far, and I had one phone call before I did step 1. When I met him that day, he said that he'd taken on 2 new people, but why not just go through the step 1 questions in the working guide and then give him a phone? So it's kind of been on that basis. and it's a little bit loose for me. It's a little bit, it's not quite what I'm looking for, but I've gone along with it, and I feel like it's better than not having a sponsor at all. And I know that I've got to do something about building that relationship up myself. I had a dream one day, and he appeared, and I always think that things that are left over from dreams that don't go away, that stay with you for weeks on end, are a message. And this particular one, he appeared at the door with a box, and I knew the box was a present. I didn't know how I knew that, wrapped up or something, and I didn't open the box. I didn't get to see what was inside the box. I took that to be a message to say, he could be giving you a gift. You could have the gift of the right sponsor, but you're not allowing that to happen. You've got to make that effort on your side as well. So I took that to be the message, and I made a phone call the next day. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Amazing, thanks. And Susie, would you like to come in?
Hi, thanks. I'm Susie. I'm an addict. Sorry, I don't have my camera on.
That's okay.
I like your assertiveness, so please shut me down if I'm talking too much. My first, I didn't really know what a sponsor was when I came in, but I knew that I wanted one. And but I was too scared to ask people. And basically I asked somebody when I was still using, they said no, because I was a bit wild. And then when I came and got clean, the person I only asked them because somebody in a meeting said, oh, why don't you ask so-and-so? And I said, okay, I'll ask them. I didn't even really know them. I didn't phone them. I didn't ask them face-to-face. I text them. And they were very lovely to me and very supportive for like a number of years. And I've had several sponsors. We probably weren't like the best fit, but she was very supportive and great in what I needed at the time. Then I kind of bounced around a bit and didn't really know what I was looking for. At one point, I decided to go to a different fellowship because I thought there was more wisdom and experience there. And although NA remained my fellowship, for some reason, this is where your own attitude can come into the sponsor that you pick. I decided I didn't want what any of the women in my area had for some reason, even though they're all amazing, wonderful women. So I separated myself essentially and got a sponsor in a different fellowship. That kind of came to an end, and I was like, after a year, I was like, why on earth don't I have a sponsor in my own fellowship? Like, I don't go to the other meetings. Why have I removed myself and separated myself from the women? And I was much more careful about who I picked this time, and it was somebody who I respected, somebody who I knew they did a lot of service, somebody who I felt had been extremely supportive of me. I saw them like sharing in meetings, coming to meetings, welcoming newcomers. I knew they sponsored other people. I could see that they worked a program, and I respected them and I trusted them. And I asked her, and I'm still with her now, like 4 or 5 years later. And I think at times though, I have thought that my sponsor should be my mum, like, or you know, like they're a parent figure, which they're not. And I've experienced that with sponsees treating me as if I'm their mother. And kind of just nodding their head in approval rather than maybe challenging me or disagreeing with me or any of those things, which I welcome in sponsorship. At times I have thought my sponsor's not spiritual enough. And then I'm like, am I looking for a god? Like, am I looking for a guru? Because that, again, is not what a sponsor is. A sponsor is somebody to guide you and support you and somebody that you trust. So I've had an interesting journey with sponsors and being a sponsor of what it truly means. And I don't think you can fast forward that. I think sometimes it just takes time and experience, listening, learning, and maybe making mistakes with your sponsor in terms of who you pick. And I think that's fine as well. Thank you.
Susan, thank you.
Thanks.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I have Leon up next and we'll move on.
Yeah, come on, Leon. Thanks, Susie.
Thanks, Paul. And yeah, I really struggled with the sponsorship thing for I think the first 10 months of coming into the rooms. And I had a couple of people that I had identified, and there was a couple of things stopping me. One of them was I felt like I'd be annoying this person. And the second one was trust. I didn't think I could trust another human being with some of the things that I have done in the past, some of the things in my head. And I was scared to phone as well. I wasn't very good with the phone. I would phone a drug dealer in 2 seconds flat, but to ask somebody to sponsor me, wouldn't do it. So I was about to walk away from this programme and chalk it up to another field recovery attempt until my wee neighbour does this fellowship. She never uses Zoom, so I've got a female sponsor, and that grew out of my neighbour. I told her I'm going to walk away from fellowship. It's not working. I don't have a sponsor. A little bit of poor me, and she offered to read the literature with me, and we started reading that. And out of that trust, I slowly began to trust her, and out of that grew sponsorship. And there's difficulties in that, as certain things I can't take to her. Like some things are more appropriate to take to a fella, and that's fine. I've got a guy in my life, and I can go to with this stuff and kind of use him for some of the stuff that she can't identify with. She's got no experience with. I certainly could not have a female sponsor more than he's my sponsor. She's an older lady. She's got breast cancer, and the only kind of positive of that was she was able to give me a lot of time. She stays round the corner as well, so I was getting 4 hours a week, like physical one-to-one, sitting down, going through the step work. And I don't want to really share this stuff for some reason, but yeah, she took me through the 12 steps, and we've got a beautiful relationship today. And I'm glad that she offered to read that literature to me, as I might not be here. So very important. I'll hand it back, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon.
Thanks, Leon. Yeah, I wanted to come back in as do after each group, each batch of people. Thank you all for sharing your experience, and that's so invaluable. It's like what Susie said, what Leon said, you know, as a sponsor with experience now, I now have what's called the talk. Before I take somebody on, I have to make it very clear. One of the things I have to point out is I'm not your dad. I'm not your best mate. If you want to be my friend, I can't be your sponsor. Because sometimes with some of the stuff we have to in step work, it's easier for me to be impartial and to say something that you might not want to hear as a sponsee. And then what's happened for me out of that is people I've sponsored for longer than 10 years, I now have beautiful relationships with them because my wife's American sponsor says, sometimes I need to call you on your shit, you know, and that's kind of how things go, you know, and there's some things in sponsorship, like, because you're asking for discipline. One of the things I've learned with sponsoring people, if someone's questioning everything in an argumentative state when you first meet them, your relationship doesn't really last. The best sponsorship I've done is when we explain exactly what we're going to do and we try to keep to the routine of doing it. Now, when I look back to when I was a sponsee, when I started working in 2003 with Alan and I followed his guidance and did what he said, my recovery exploded. A lot of it I didn't like, but because I followed his direction and did what he said, I got what I've been trying to get for 10 years. I got recovery. So instead of me taking the meeting hostage, can we move on to the next one, which I've jotted down? What's it like when you get a sponsor and you realize you've actually got the right sponsor for you? Could we have 3 people or 4 people this time? 2-3 minutes. What's it really like when you know you might have had 5 sponsors and then you get a sponsor and you go, fuck.
This is just the way it's supposed to be. Bobby, Scott and Barry, you've got some experience of this, haven't you? Just recently. Bobby, do you want to come in?
Good evening, my name is Bobby. I'm an addict, yeah.
Hi, Bobby.
That's a funny thing you've come out with there about sponsee and sponsors and the rest of it, yeah. if I'm not gonna lie, yeah. I had one sponsor, I never had a sponsor at all for that nearly 9 months and stuff, because I don't think it's something you should rush into. Try and find someone you could work with properly. Anyway, just after nearly 9 months, I found that. Sorry, just after 9 months, I found that, yeah. So then I started working with him. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'm an ignorant guy sometimes. Maybe I'm a bit arrogant sometimes. I won't deny that. I'm probably a hard sponsor to deal with. I know that as well. Mileage is terrible. I know that as well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I've got a lot of things going against me, really, when I say I'm for a sponsor. Because, like, I am, man, I'm hard to deal with. I know that. But it's hard to find a sponsor who understands me, so my level I can talk to you properly. You know what sponsor's there for? What's I believe, but like it's kind of getting hard. Like I'm not getting hard. Best way to explain it. It's like it's a touchy subject because I think to myself, should I stay with him because he was my first sponsor, he was good, or should I look for another sponsor? He worked for another ship and so on. It's like a double-edged sword. I mean, like sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. I don't really know, to be honest. I really don't. And like, at the end of the day, yeah, me being myself, yeah, if I'm honest, yeah, I don't want to keep going through untold sponsors. It's not that kind of party. It's not about that. Yeah. Would I work with my man again? I'm not even too sure. I really ain't, yeah. At the end of the day, anything that is put in front of me, I'll at least give it a try.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I just all right, cool. You have to stop, yeah?
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for posing those questions as well.
Thank you so much.
Scott, please come in.
Thank you, Paul. My name's Scott, I'm an addict. Good to see you here, and thank you for what you're saying. And thank you, Frankie, who's known me since I came in the door, basically. I think I first met Frankie about 30 days in. The sponsor I've had for the last 10 years tells you what it says, 10 years. I mean, basically, I was 3 years clean when I got this particular sponsor, and I'd had a sponsor before take me through the steps. And there's no reflection on him why my relationship with this one is different. What it was, I was 3 years in, I needed something else. I just moved house to a different area. This guy had always been on my radar anyway, and I asked him about sponsorship, and he just basically said to me, he said, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm all those things that Frankie said. And he said to me, and the first thing he said to me, he said, also, I'm not your higher power. I'm not here to tell you what colour socks to put on. And my first thing is, he went, I'm a busy man. I sponsor a lot of people. I've got my own recovery. I've got a child. I've got a job that takes me everywhere. And my first thing I'm going to ask you is basically go and find your inner circle of people within the fellowship. You're going to have to find friends. He said, and run stuff past them, meet some peers. He went, because I'm not your be all and end all. And I do step 10 with other friends within fellowship. It's not as if I'm betraying him. I'm not sleeping behind his back. You know what I mean? It's like he's giving me a suggestion and what it is. And if it still comes up, then I go to him and I go, right, what do you reckon on this? I've spoken to so-and-so and so-and-so. And then usually I can go, boom, straight to it. And because he's a busy man, when I speak to him, we bypass all the right, what's going on, bosh? Now, I go out for a meal with him, I've got the shows with him, I've got the gigs with him, all this sort of thing. But that's because we've got to know each other over 10 years. I've been with my wife for 28 years. I still sometimes don't know if she's the right one. You know what I mean? But the thing is, when you first meet that person, you meet that person and you build on it. So the thing is, anyone who thinks that they're going to meet this person across a meeting room and say, that's my sponsor for life. It's like, you don't even have things in the back of cars, the dog's not just for Christmas. You don't know. You don't know until you work it in. It's a two-way thing. It's just that I wanted what this guy had, and lo and behold, 10 years later, I still want what he's got. And that's what it is, you know what I mean? And he said to me, he said, the first rule of sponsorship is don't behave in a way that your sponsors can be proud of you. Behave in a way that your sponsees never have to excuse or apologise for your behaviour. So I've carried on sponsoring people over the last few years. And it's basically, I've got to behave in a way that if they want what I've got to carry on doing what they want, what they think I've got. You know what I mean? They don't want to go in a room and someone go running across the room and go, hey, do you know what I heard about your sponsor? And basically bring it all down in you know what I mean? It's not about being on a pedestal. It ain't about that. But they've literally put their trust in you, these people, for you to turn around and basically shit all over it, for want of a better term. So what it is, that's the best thing he's ever given me, is behave in a way that, not I'm proud of you, he said I'm proud of you anyway. He said, behave in a way that your sponsors never have to excuse or apologise for you. And in that way, you're doing your job. If they don't stick with you, that's their stuff. And very, very quickly, the other thing is, regarding sponsors, I've got a few of them who are running around not doing basically what they should be. And he said to me, he said, remember, you're the lighthouse. Ships seek lighthouses. Lighthouses do not seek ships. They're grown men, right? They're not newborn, they're newcomers, right? They know what they're doing. It's whether they're going to change it is up to them. So remember, lighthouses seek ships seek lighthouses. Lighthouses do not seek ships. Anyway, on that one, thank you.
Amazing, Scott. That's like a tongue twister. I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, Barry, in you come. Thanks, Scott.
Hi everyone, my name's Barry Maddock. So I'll start this quick share by saying I'm a 27-year-old millennial who hates phoning people. I hate receiving phone calls. I hate phoning people. I'd much rather do everything by email or text. People phone you, I'm like, why can't you just text me? So I'll start that off. And you know, how it works in here, I guess, is around phone calls, around connection and so on and so forth. So I'm sure Paul doesn't mind. Paul is my friend who introduced me to these rooms. And I just assumed sort of, you know, coming to meetings and sort of get involved reading the literature that eventually Paul would be my sponsor. Just the assumption that I had, but very quickly, you know, understood that it doesn't work like that. Your pal can't be your sponsor. It just doesn't work. So then the overriding fear in me that I was going to have to find someone and phone them and meet them and then, you know, phone them quite a lot after that is a barrier within itself. But I got great advice from Paul and some others about basically trying to find someone who you can relate to in meetings in terms of who has the same understanding maybe of the program as you. So I approached a sponsor who was kind of into the literature through the way of the basic text meetings, the sort of line by line study, because that's the way that, you know, I learned and sort of experience and appreciate the program. And, you know, actually text them first to set up a phone call because, you know, that's just how I roll as well. And 90 days clean today. And clearly then, so I've not had an experience of a bad sponsor. I need to find a new one, but clearly something is working with the relationship that we have. Meet once a weekly, phone more than that. And I think just that understanding of, you know, the way in which he approached the steps and approaches how he speaks in terms of meetings is the way that I, you know, think and I'm currently approaching the steps, if that makes sense. So literature-based, program-focused, line by line sort of reading and study. And clearly something's working because here we are at 90 days. So it was just to reflect on that point about friendship and not quite understanding how that works at the start. And yeah, so relationship's going well and hopefully it will continue to go strength to strength. But thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Barry. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Two stories. Oh, Barry, would you mind reading out the sponsorship thing that you put up for those who are not in the chat, please?
Barry, I'm just going to co-host you so you can just unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was...
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few, but they're all basically around the same. So sponsorship is the act of supporting a person, organization, or activity by giving money, encouragement, advice, or other help.
You can see the confusion there for people when they come in, can't you? You know, when they come in, it's like, okay, will you be my sponsor? It's like, yeah, sure. How much money do you want? You know, it's like, don't quite work like that, does it? Right, the story, always a story. There's a story. East London, it's a common story. Two addicts from an East London famous meeting called Happy Mondays. One of the guys there was new. He came in and he asked this other guy to be his sponsor. The guy said yes. He took him through the 12 steps. And after he'd taken him through the 12 steps, he revealed that he'd been using the whole fucking time. Now, the guy he took through the 12 steps is still clean today. So what does that tell us? That tells us it's the effort you put in. So there's no actual such thing as a bad sponsor because a sponsor's going to give you directions. There's an incompetent sponsor, agreed, yeah, which you could probably class as being a bad sponsor. But generally, most people, if they've gone through and have an understanding of the 12-step program, especially Narcotics Anonymous program, they can generally guide you in the right direction. and around step work as such. I'm very wary of sponsors. We've heard it earlier, very wary of sponsors who throw a book at you, tell you to write and come back and see them. Because I don't know about you guys, looking at step working guide, the first question, you know, what's the disease of addiction? Give that to a new person. It was mind-blowing for me. It's too hard. I need help. I need another addict to run it past me. I needed another addict to say to me, are you able to stop smoking cigarettes? And then work from there to break it down to me, you know, so I had that. The other bit which I wanted to move on with, which was highlighted, was thankfully by Scott, which is sponsorship network. One of the things my sponsor Alan said to me, I rang him up one day and I was having problems with social services about my daughter, and of course I phoned my sponsor up, it's emotional, and he said, look, we can do a step 10 and we can look at your part in this. He said, but I suggest you find another person in recovery who works recovery, who has children, and ask them for some help. So it's not about my sponsors, the one-stop shop where they go with all the answers. So I got connected with another person in recovery, because I'd been phoning people who didn't have children. No disrespect to people who don't have children, but you know, it's there was lots of good suggestions, but we in recovery want suggestions based on experience, if possible, or then refer to the literature. So the next bit is, who has a sponsorship sponsee network, and how do you use it? No, that's a bit of a mouthful. But I have a sponsorship network. I have a sponsor and I have sponsees. And just to quote the book in What Can I Do? It says in the line in What Can I Do? Sponsorship is a two-way street. Now, I phone sponsees and I speak to them. Don't ask them how, not only how they're doing, I also ask their thoughts on different things. I need a different perspective. So has anybody got any sponsee brothers, we call them, or sponsee sisters? Or has anybody got a good best mate who's become a best mate in recovery? Or does anyone ring their sponsor every day? Any experience around this? Please feel free to come back in.
My name's Paul. My sponsor won't tell me who my sponsorship family is on the basis of anonymity. I hear someone sharing in a meeting, I'm like, do you sponsor that guy? He sounds like, and they'll go, can't break his anonymity, which is great. But if I could just share a little bit on the hierarchy, and we're all addicts of equal status. A great thing happened to me. This is why I really connected with my current sponsor, because he said to me, Paul, can you sponsor me just for today? And I was so blown away by that. And he says, this is like what you just said, Frankie, this is a two-way street. And one thing I'm not going to do is send you off to do assignments and come back and mark them, because that's what was happening to me. I was coming back to my previous sponsors, hoping he was going to give me validation and say, really great step work, Paul. And what we do is, I mean, we speak 2 or 3 times a week, but we do all our step work together, like together on the call or on the thing. And that's kind of been a game changer for me. But Stefan, please come in. Oh, can you unmute your video?
Hi, my name is Stefan. I'm an addict.
Hey, Stefan.
Yeah, I just changed a sponsor a few. It was a month and a half ago. I was with my sponsor before for from 4-step to 9-step, and now my new sponsor, we have a monthly meeting, him with all these sponsees, so we know each other. And we have a meeting, which is not an NA meeting, but it's an NA meeting. We don't have the readings, we have the prayer at the beginning, and everybody shares what is, what's going on. And it used to be an old tradition of a Sunday tea and cookie at home for him, to get everybody in, for the Sunday, which is a really tough day for for addicts the Sunday. And so it was something like he was doing, but now with Zoom, and my sponsor is in America, so now we have that in Zoom, and it was really weird, but it was nice as the first experience. And I call him every day at between 4 and 6. We have a chat for 15 minutes, and it changed my life on a day-to-day basis. And we work some stuff. We work the prayer, we work the steps. It's really a practical relationship about the program. That's my experience, and I love it. I love it. It's really great to have somebody in your life, you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks, Stefan.
I love that point about how it's like, you know, that passion, that what Frankie said earlier, that connection. When you find that connection with a sponsor, how what an important relationship it is in your life.
Well, let's go left of field, considering that we've got what, if we look at this, 25 people in the meeting. We've lost 10, but we've got 25 people in the meeting at the moment, and it seems like it might be walking through mud a little bit. So let's liven it up. Does anybody go to the same meeting as their sponsor? And does their sponsor give them feedback? I see you put your hand up, Lisa. And does their sponsor give them feedback after the meeting, or do you need to give your sponsor feedback? Or are they just annoying?
Susie, come in.
Hey, Susie.
Thanks. In my area, you end up at the same meeting as your sponsor. That's just kind of what happens now and again. I wouldn't say my sponsor gives me feedback. She might kind of mention something in passing, but we've got quite a close relationship. But what has happened before is, again, this goes back to kind of what I shared before, is sometimes I'll hear something that I don't like. Sometimes I'll hear my sponsor share something that I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that. Or again, back to my arrogant spiritual thing, where I'm like, well, that's not a very spiritual response. But I feel like it's quite good, because it makes me reflect on this sort of what creeps in about wanting my sponsor to be some perfect being or some perfect addict, when it's like they're just another addict. They're just another addict. They've got responses, they've got emotions, they've got difficult things going on in their lives. And they're just another person walking the path as well. So in a way, it's kind of humbling, and it also makes me reflect on my unrealistic expectations of a sponsor. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Susie. I think Paul's popped out for a minute. Yeah, I'm 19 years clean, and I've been sponsoring for 18 years, and I still can't levitate. I'm working on it, but I just haven't got it yet. So Maria, please come in.
Hi, I thought I raised my hand before, but I think I just waved. I did the wave thing. Yeah, Maria, addict. Yeah, my sponsor I've known since I was 14, and I relapsed when I was living in Thailand. Sorry, I've got flu, and she became a big part of my life there and started getting connected with me. And so then when I moved back to England, like she picked me up, took me to my second meeting. My old sponsor picked me up from my first. I had to disconnect from her because the rehab I went to, the owner was my sponsor, so it was in the same family. But yeah, every Monday I have to do the same meeting as my sponsor. I had to chair it for 2 years to be accountable. I think maybe I did it for more than 2 years. And then, yeah, and I have to share as well, no matter how rough I'm feeling, just so she knows where I'm at. She's got long COVID. And then I moved to Thailand again this year for 5.5 months. So then I had to do a 10 a.m. meeting England time to get the right time. Not just voice messages, just so she can see my face, see how I can speak as well, and all that, and just visually be there, because you know, in this with what's gone on in the world, it's not so easy to meet up as well. And she's got long COVID and I have health stuff. So yeah, that is something that we do keep up and have kept up for 3 years, the last 3 years. Yeah, so that's just my feedback. And it's helped. Yeah, I hope. Yeah, well, I'm still clean, so.
Thanks, Maria. We're going to bounce another one on Paul, and then we're going to start, if no hands go up, we'll start picking on the committee. But what's it like to have long-term sponsorship, long-distance sponsorship, not long-term, long-distance? Paul.
Well, my sponsor's in Melbourne, and the time difference is quite tricky because he's 9 hours ahead, but it just means we do the step work at kind of like before work, like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I think as long as the sponsee and the sponsor are committed with the technology that we've got at our fingertips now, I find it works. I mean, this is the best, this is an incredible relationship. So there's nothing getting in the way of the long distance sponsorship. So yeah, I would say it works very well as long as you, like what you talked about earlier, Frankie, as long as you're disciplined, willing, and committed, nothing can really get in the way of the the work. So as long as you've got a sponsor who is I don't know, just is available, I suppose is the word. Scott, please come in, and then the committee, please.
Thank you, Paul. This isn't about long distance sponsorship just yet, but it's prospective. 8 weeks today, I'm moving to Thailand. Oh, sorry, me and my wife are moving to Thailand. We're starting afresh. We're renting our house out. We've got a tenant and we're setting up store and we're going out there. Every lunchtime at the moment, I'm doing meetings in Phuket, Chiang Mai, and all the rest of it online. But I've been in touch with all my sponsees and my sponsor, and I've sort of said, I'm quite happy with relationships as they are. If you feel you need that person-to-person stuff, I totally understand, and we can sort of call it an amicable, go our own ways. But if you're going to carry on working with me, the only thing I've got to say to you is take into account the time zone of 7 hours. And apart from one who's the jury's out anyway, the others have all just turned and said, I'm happy to subscribe to this. It might change once I'm out there. I said, I'll probably be available more because I'm not working. However, I might be available more at different times. So don't go calling me 8 o'clock at night because I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to answer the bloody phone. I don't care who you are. But the point being is, like, we can work out that. I mean, I've got a sponsor I've been sponsoring for 6.5 years. I met him in Shoreditch in East London, and he lives in Perth in Western Australia. So every third Sunday we get together, and have done ever since. We've gone through the steps, gone through the traditions, we've gone through the guiding principles book, we've done steps on these old worksheets. And I get in touch with him 10 o'clock on a Skype call every third Sunday, and it's 5 p.m. in Perth in Western Australia. And we have a good couple of hours, and sometimes we just put the paper down and just have a chat. And other times he can tell me his missus, she's into orienteering, she's climbing this bloody mountain, she's doing this, and he's just started this new job, and I tell him what I've been up to here. And basically it's just building that relationship and keeping it going. It isn't necessarily just a business thing. Otherwise, every time I call him, I might as well be his therapist. Right, what have we done this time? This question answer, question answer, trying to keep the rapport going. There's no rush, there's no fire. My first sponsor always said to me, once I've done my first step 4 and 5, look, there's lots to do, but turn around and enjoy the view. It's not about the first one up to the mountain and putting the flag in the top. You know what I mean? You're going to get the work done and the work needs doing. But this relationship is not about, we need to get into recovery, and we need to get into recovery sharpish when we come in door. I get that. I totally get that. But there comes a time when you've got to look around and enjoy what's going on in your life. You know what I mean? And actually, because the thing is, when you get to the top and you realise, I'm still full of shit and I've still got loads of problems. I know somebody does a step a year. When they get 12 years clean and they still realise they're full of defects, I mean, what are they going to do with themselves? So the point being is it's just basically, it is what it is. In the meantime, try and enjoy life without using drugs. In the meantime, carry on doing the work, carry on. And it's building up. It's not just easy going. I've got other people who've got to crack the whip. And I try to be everyone for everybody, as long as it's within my within my realm of doing it. But the point is like, doing all this, sponsorship is a big part of recovery, but it's not recovery. Recovery is down to the individual and how responsible you want to be in your own life. But it helps having someone who keeps you on that, for want of a better term, straight and narrow. That's my take on it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm an addict.
Hey, Matt.
So my sponsor is in London. So I mean, it's still the same country. but it's still far enough away that I don't get the opportunity to meet up very often. But we have quite a good structured relationship where every single weekend on a Sunday we have a call. Sorry, 1 second. Right, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, every Sunday we have a call, you know, and I update her with just what's happened in my life that week, and she always pulls me out of my own self-pity, and it's very, very loving. But twice in my recovery, I've actually got to meet her. So I met her when she was up for the convention in Scotland, and I recently got to meet her in Egypt. And having that physical connection with your sponsor and knowing that the relationship that you've built over Zoom and over a phone call, where you trust them, and I don't know, the honesty that you can, the honesty I can have on the phone is far much easier than the honesty that I can have face to face. But to get a hug from my sponsor physically in our entire relationship is one of the best things that I've experienced in recovery. Yeah, I like that we have a long distance sponsorship, but I like that I can meet her and I can have that physical contact as well. So,
thanks, Matt. When I was a year clean, living in North London, going through step work with my sponsor, he lived at Victoria Station, which was the other side. I was living in Finsbury Park, so it was a journey across London to go and visit him. And the deal was I would be there 9 o'clock in the morning. We would do sponsorship stuff, step work. Well, one day I was on the tube going over and the tube got stuck. The deal was to be there for 9 o'clock in the morning and the tube got stuck. The little Nokia phone wouldn't work, it had no signal. When I go out the other end half hour late, I'll go round to his house and on the door, no reply. I'm phoning him, he's not answering. I'm thinking, you know, it's all about Frankie. I've just travelled across London to come and meet my sponsor and he's not fucking there. He has a responsibility, this guy. So after about 10 minutes, I thought, fuck this for a game of soldiers. Excuse my swearing. I went round to the cafe to have something to eat and he's sitting in the cafe. So I go, oh, Alan, what are you doing? I've been round to your house. I was stuck on the tube and I could see his head was boiling. He was fuming. He was absolutely fuming. Thomas the Tank Engine fuming he was. And he turned around to me and he said, we have an appointment at 9 o'clock. He said, if you're not going to be there, you need to let me know. He said, because I'd rather be having sex with my girlfriend than talking to you. He laid the ground rules down really heavy. And I didn't like that. And I didn't like his response. But like what was pointed out by Susie just now, you know, it's that thing of, he's just a recovering addict. It's kind of natural for him to get pissed off. And especially, I asked him a bit later on, he had tried to call me and he thought I'd switch my phone off. So he was in that stage of, fuck it. You know, we'll go around the cafe, have something to eat. So I'll share that. Has anybody got any experiences similar or anything like that where they've argued with their sponsor or they've actually made a mistake or think their sponsor's getting them at it or anything like that? Or have you done it to a sponsee? Lewis, I have to tell you, that was brilliant watching the cattail pass.
Hey,
you
John.
see the cattail just go.
Come in, John. Tell us.
Oh, John F., grateful recovering addict. I'm just going to share because that's what we're here for. As far as arguments with a sponsor. It was early recovery, and I can't, I didn't place blame. The situation was we were working a step 3, and we were meeting at a McDonald's or something because he liked to meet there, and he was explaining, asking the question, and I was explaining why I was hesitant and my reservations, and that it was going to make me angry, and he wasn't accepting that. I respect this guy. He's highly intelligent. I know he's 100% program, and I know that he has his perspective and what he's trying to illuminate or teach or share. But where I was at, and I was aware of that, but it was very early recovery. I was still much like melted brain, kind of like I still have a lot of that. It's just like trying to think again, sort of a thing. And I could get out. I explained like, this is going to piss me off, and he kept doing this. I'm like, and I could feel it coming, because I'm aware of I was trying to be rational, but I knew that this is what it was going to lead to, and he didn't. And I ended up standing and yelling, I told you this was going to piss me off, and you're not listening, and all this kind of stuff. And he maintained his composure, and I've known the guy for 3 years now, and he's still a perfect NA, shining example of 100% pure program and getting the message and patience and understanding and sharing, this sort of a thing. And he maintained his composure, and he just kept explaining his perspective, his better experience, his strength, and all this kind of stuff. And he was patient with me. He didn't exacerbate. He didn't cop an attitude of his own. He was that much more mature and experienced in the program that he knew to maintain, he knew he was dealing with an early addict in recovery. So he just let the thing happen, and that's about it. I guess that's what we were sharing about, right? There was no blame. I was brought along to a higher understanding of my own brain and where I'm at and what an addict is and what recovery. It's the process of it, the early, ugly, emotional, whatever kind of thing of early recovery. So
Thanks,
I guess
John.
that's it. I'll leave it there.
And how that works, John, is you've just triggered a thought for me that I had from it would be 16 years ago. I was sitting in a Hampstead meeting in North London, and my sponsor had invited us to go because he was 5 years clean. And he said, come to this Hampstead meeting. I'm 5 years clean and I'm doing the share. So he did the share. And when he finished, this guy who I know put his hand up and shared back to him and said, thank you for being my sponsor. And I remember the self-centeredness. I was learning about self-centeredness. I was a couple of years clean. And I remember looking around thinking, that's my sponsor. It was like as if the sponsor was exclusive to me. He's my sponsor. How dare you, and this, so that was a learning for me. And similar to yourself, it's like when I spoke to my sponsor about it later on, he was understanding that, my brain was still being becoming unpickled, so to speak. It takes a while, doesn't it? It takes a while we can't expect, if we've been taking mind and mood altering drugs, for us to all of a sudden be super spiritual, even with doing the work. So anyone else got any experience? Because that was fantastic what John shared.
Was this falling out with a sponsor? Difficult
or calling the sponsor on their shit and you're wrong, or or the sponsor telling you off and they're wrong, or
I think,
come on, you've got a lot of experience.
I think one of the big lessons I learned was knowing that the relationship wasn't working with a sponsor, but being I think other people shared it, wanting to be the guy that had the same sponsor all my recovery, so really kind of flawed thinking from the outset, and thinking that it was some kind of guilt and shame on me if I parted ways, and not having that feeling that it wasn't working for 6 months. And then finally it got so bad that, the relationship, that I had to, I actually had to do it, and just regretting that I wasted so much time. There's no point of getting into the whys and the wherefores of why the relationship wasn't working. It just wasn't. And it was probably on both of us, but it's just that I wish I'd been a lot more decisive in cutting ties, and it was a very difficult moment when it happened, because I met him for coffee. I thought, I'll do it face to face, of course. I won't do what Barry does and send a text. Not that you did that, Barry, but you know, just being a millennial. And he, when I said, look, because we were having disagreements over stupid things like region and you know, that kind of stuff, and yeah, he got up and walked out. He got up, and I had to phone someone, and and that person said, I think that person needs to look at his ego and his control issues. And it instantly made me feel better, because I thought I'd done something really wrong. And yeah, I think relationships is one thing we struggle with in recovery, full stop, you know, hence the work we do in step 4. And yeah, it just reinforced to me how important it is to find the right sponsor, no matter how many I've got. Not that I've churned over loads, but I just had to find the right one.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I think it was Maria or Susie, not sure, earlier about, or it might have been Margaret, having a sponsor in a different fellowship. Anyone got any experience around that? Okay.
Maria.
I'll come in again. My video's not on. Yeah, I was living on a small island in Thailand, and my first NA sponsor died, so I got one from the mothership, and then we went to Pattaya to do my step 4, and his rock bottom was very different. It was I was spent a week there doing my 4 and 5, and got halfway through my step 4, and he burst into tears because I couldn't get an NA sponsor. There was only like one meeting on the island a week, and yeah, and anyway, so got halfway through my step 4, and he said, I can't do it, I can't take it anymore. And he said, this isn't my world, and he said, I quit. So we were halfway through. So I walked out of his apartment in Pattaya, and then I stood at the door having a cigarette, and I said the Serenity prayer, and then I just burst out laughing, and then he burst out laughing, and then the two of us were in hysterics, and then we came back in, and he was like 16 years sober, and we hugged it out, and he worked his program, and we got through it. But we're still good friends, but he you know, he had to resign, and he said he needed therapy after doing that. So yeah, not advisable. It was kind of desperate measures, but that was my one experience. So yeah.
Thanks, Maria. Great to hear from you. Jericho girls, please, as many of you as you like.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Anne-Marie, I'm an addict. Thanks, Frankie, for taking the meeting. I've had experience with get sponsors in different fellowships for the wrong reasons. Like I attended NA for years and years and years, and I could never get to get somebody to sponsor me. But all I heard for years was, Anne-Marie, you need to do the programme, you need to go through the steps, and I just couldn't get clean to get a sponsor to go through the steps. So what I done on a couple of occasions was go to AA, and I wouldn't drink, but I would still use heroin, knowing that my AA sponsor wouldn't know that I was using heroin because they didn't have the experience. And I really thought to myself, well, maybe if I learn how to stay clean by going through this programme, at the end of the programme I'll get clean, and then I'll be able to stay clean. That was my thinking for a long time. And twice I've went 1 to 12 with sponsors. Twice I've had the audacity to go through 1 to 12 with AA sponsors. But no, well, obviously I didn't feel any different because I was still using. And it wasn't until I got a sponsor that took me through the Narcotics Anonymous working guide when I was clean. Now I feel the benefits, know the difference having a sponsor. And you were saying at the beginning of the meeting as well, Frankie, like key workers are my sponsors. And I'm like, that's my experience as well, because I've been in a few rehabs. But in this rehab, it's the key workers in here have got to be working a 12-step Narcotics Anonymous programme. They've got to have a sponsor. They've got to be group members. And there's requirements for them to become a key worker in here. They've got to be members at NA. So it is like key worker sponsorship relationship. And I'm so glad it's like that in this rehab, because I don't know if I would have ever stayed clean long enough now to get a sponsor out there. There was loads of lasses I got to know over the years. It wasn't shy that I was asking them to be my sponsor. It was just that I couldn't stay clean. And I didn't want to take the mick out them. It was all right taking the mick out of the sponsor, but that's awful. That's my experience. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Have any of the other girls got any experience of sponsorship?
Just to let Anne-Marie know that thinking, some of us call it stinking thinking.
And
anyone else? Here we go. Nope. Okay, cool.
Okay, guys, we've got about 15 minutes left. So what's it like to be sponsored? Somebody like to come in and share their experience of what their emotions and feelings are around being sponsored?
Hey, John, and then Susie.
John F., still an addict. I'll share because it's kind of quiet. My sponsor is a constant reminder of the effort that I have to make, and like sort of the moment of importance. And I can't lie to myself when my sponsor is right there, and I can't like delude myself or pretend that he's not there and I'm not in this program for exactly the reason I am. You know, I can't pretend that I'm here for any other reason than the reason I'm here, you know, doing this out of necessity, life and death. You know, a change has to be made, something has to be different, a problem has to be faced, dealt with, worked through, whatever it is. And the sponsor, being as knowledgeable as he is, mine in particular, and several of obviously that I've met and heard about here, wonderful people, and talk about your sponsors, that lean 100% message and all this knowledge of the step work, the books, the literature, all this sorts of things. They've got all this sort of thing, and it's that discomfort that they talk about that you can't ignore. I don't know. It just seems to be like the most important thing, that it is up to me. I can't pretend that it isn't my choice. Like I have to accept responsibility for my own life. Everything, all that stinking thinking, all that wrong thinking that I used to have, I am forced to face it and look at it and consider it as I hadn't in the past, you know, choosing easier, more destructive routes instead. So a sponsor is absolutely important, because that's a choice that I have to make. It's like a maturity or something, or a growth, or like do things right this time. Don't do things, you know, it's just all of that solidified like a gem, a jewel, you know, a diamond or something like that. It's like, I got to choose. I have to make that choice. And him being there is just that daily reminder, like, where I'm at, where I could be, all the work I have to do, where I came from, and all that sort of a thing. So I think it's necessary. It's infinitely like the most important thing. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. I don't like having a sponsor, because I don't like thinking about a sponsor, because I'm a lazy addict, you know, that sort of thing. And it's a reminder of the things I have to do to change, and the work and the effort I have to put into it to behave differently. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you all sponsors for being here.
Thank you, John.
Susie.
Thanks. Hi. I like being sponsored. It's one of the most important relationships in my life, and it's certainly changed over time. I don't think I really understood, or maybe I did understand the relationship, but I couldn't engage in it in the way that I heard many people engaging in it. Like, I never phoned my sponsor at the time of things happening. I would always phone them like 2 weeks later and then update them on what had happened and what I decided to do. Over time, and also I used to keep secrets from my sponsor, which is clearly like a massive red flag. And over time and suffering, I've learned not to do that, and I've learned to trust, and I'm very open and honest with my sponsor now. And the relationship, I like it when, well, maybe not like it at the time when she challenges me or doesn't agree with something or whatever, but it's a relationship that's helped me grow. It makes me feel more confident in my life because she's very supportive of kind of the bigger choices and small choices that I make. She makes me feel, having a sponsor makes me feel more secure in basically everything that I do. I guess that's what it boils down to. I'm like, oh, it makes me feel stronger. It makes me feel more confident. It makes me feel more secure. It makes me feel more grounded. I know she's got my back. I know she's there. And one of my latest examples of that is that I'm pregnant, and I had to think about who was going to be my birthing partner. And I was like, who do I feel safe with? Who do I feel truly safe with? Who do I truly trust? Who do I feel like I can look into their eyes and I'll feel okay? And it's my sponsor. And I've asked my sponsor if she's going to be my birthing partner. And that kind of solidifies what an important relationship it is, because I've got 3 sisters. I've got like close friends. I've got a mother. I don't have a partner, which is why I was finding a birthing partner. But it's a strong relationship that grounds me, and as I said about 25 times, it just makes me feel more secure and safe in life generally. Thanks.
Thank you, Susie. Scott.
Thank you, Paul. I've had 3 sponsors. The first one was for just over 2 years, and he was a year clean when he sponsored me, and his sponsor was 30 odd years clean. And I still believe to this day I was sponsored by proxy by the guy who was 30 years clean. Because the thing is, it's like, I mean, I don't know what I'd have to give you a year clean, but hey ho. The second one, I had 6 months when I moved down, and as I said, the guy I've been with for the last 10 years, and each one I've asked, I've all said the same thing to me, and it's really weird because they don't even know each other. And each one I've asked, I said, will you sponsor me? And all of them have said, I don't know if there's a book of sponsorship that I haven't been given. And it sort of says, on one condition, that one day you will sponsor somebody else. I don't care how long it takes you. You're not that important to be the end of the production line. And words to that effect, I haven't actually said it word for word verbatim, but the point is like, they've all said that as long as one day you're going to sponsor somebody else, I'm not here to just help you so you can just, I won't say leech or bleed off me, but the thing, there's got to come a time when you're there to support and help somebody else. And that's what I'm teaching you. And what I've found is the relationship I've got with my sponsor now, a lot of it is basically saying to him, I've got this thing going on with a sponsor. I don't break anonymity, I don't break confidentiality. But I go, and I don't know what to do about it because I haven't had this relationship, I haven't had this experience. He goes, well, you know what to do. The thing is, he said, basically, and it comes back to the thing, he reminds me of the simplistics of what we do. We share our experience, strength and hope, not our advice, strength and hope, not our opinion, strength and hope, just our experience. If you ain't got experience, keep it still. You're a sponsor, not Google. You ain't supposed to know. So the point being is basically someone comes up, I mean, I've got 5 active sponsors who are engaging in step work. Now they're all married men who are in long-term relationships. So I can speak about that because that's my if they say to me, oh, about my kids, I go, can I stop you there? I ain't got kids. But Dave over there is 17 years clean. He's had 2 kids in recovery. You might want to have a chat with him. So I've realised what a lot of sponsorship is signposting people and actually being big enough to sort of say, I don't know, but he might be able to help you. And that's the one thing my sponsors told me is like, look, this sponsorship is a responsibility. It really is. However, it's not for you to be mastermind. And he's taken the pressure off me to be a sponsor because when the first person asked me to sponsor, I was petrified. Fucking no, I'm going to relapse first time I open my trap. But he made it easy for me to just make it like, it's okay. It's okay not to know as long as you know where to direct them to where it's okay. It might be that they need to go to another fellowship for identification, but carry on doing the step work here because they might not get the resonance in our rooms. However, that doesn't necessarily mean from over there, but basically it might mean that they might need some outside help. We treat like that. They might need some other support, but basically if you can just find out little bits for them and help them and ask them to bring it back to you, So, you know what I mean? And that's sometimes what it is. A lot. I've got a sponsor, I can honestly say, I don't know how much I've helped him apart from be his bloody roadmap. But the thing is, he's still clean, I'm still clean, and we still get on with it. You know what I mean? And that's what I've learned is the art of sponsorship, if there is an art from what I've learned and from what I've watched and from what I've experienced, is I haven't got to know everything, and that's okay. And it took the pressure off in an instant. And the other thing is, as my sponsors always saying to me, when there is no certificate for sponsorship, we're all winging it. No one knows what they're fucking doing. Just some people don't know what they're doing for a lot longer than others. But we're giving it a go. And we're staying clean. And again, it takes the heat off me. It takes the pressure off me. It makes it feel like I'm doing okay. I'm trying to help. And that's what the emphasis is on that step 12. Try. You know what I mean? It's to try. It doesn't mean I'm going to succeed. It means try. So anyway, that's my take. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Lisa, please come in.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for taking the meeting, Paul. Thanks, Frankie, for taking the workshop, and thanks everyone for sharing their experience. Yeah, I'm in relapse, just so everybody knows I'm in relapse at the moment and trying to get clean again. So my experience, I've had 6 sponsors. My first sponsor I got was in 2007 when I came into recovery, and I worked up to step 5 with that sponsor, and I waited for her to carry on with her step 6, but she didn't, so our relationship ended. And she was a lady that she was volunteering in the detox that I went in to begin with, and I just felt safe with her. That's why I asked her to be my sponsor. Anyway, that ended because she hadn't carried on the process herself. So I asked another lady that I knew she had done this 12 steps. So she asked me to write her life story, which I did. And on that morning I was due to go to her house. She rang me up and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't sponsor you anymore. I'll leave you with that," and put the phone down on me. So I was kind of left thinking, what the fuck is going on? So then I asked another lady, and I was with that lady for a number of years. And so I went back to 1, 2, and 3 and started to step 4 and had a baby in that time. And I relapsed on medication at 6 years clean. I had a lot of damage from the baby. So then I went to treatment and I got another sponsor. So I went back to the beginning of doing step 1 and got to step 4, working with her, and I relapsed. She is actually dead. She died in a hotel room last year. So last year I got clean on the screen. Asked somebody on the international. She only sponsored me for three months. She let go of me because she didn't have capacity. And I've just asked another sponsor in my home where I live in Brighton, and she's 16 years clean. She's a mum in recovery. She's got experience of relapse. And I asked her last week, and so we're just at the beginning of our relationship. But she what I like about her is that we have spoken about the two-way thing. I know some sponsors don't get in touch with their sponsees. They ask the sponsees to do all the calling, but I like that two-way thing, and my sponsor is like that. She's been ringing. She rings me every morning at 8:30 to ask how I am, and I like that because especially where I'm at the moment, I need a lot of support and a lot of love to love me back to, you know, being clean again. So so we spoke this morning, and then I rang her this evening, and we had a WhatsApp call and just a little check-in. And So I'm really hoping that this relationship will just grow and blossom, and I will get that day clean
Well,
again.
let's hope that happens. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing. That's lovely.
Lisa.
Thank you. Paul, over to you.
Just something came up for me there when the guys were sharing, and Susie, and I was thinking, if honesty is the kind of fundamental principle between a sponsor and a sponsee, and we come into recovery, and I found it really hard to be completely honest, especially if I was acting like some kind of deviant or something. Not that I was, but if I was, you know, I might find it honest to get about certain things. And then I was thinking about, if the atmosphere of recovery is the greatest gift we give the newcomer, and then it also talks about an atmosphere of mutual respect, an atmosphere of not looking down on each other, can we carry that into the sponsor-sponsee relationship? That was so important for me, not to feel judged. You know, obviously being honest is on me, but that atmosphere of recovery, which allows me or encourages me to be honest. I mean, I would basically could tell my sponsor that I've gone out and murdered 3 people at the weekend, and his response would be, so which page are we on with the work, Paul? What was it? You know, he would just get straight back, or he would just kill himself laughing first, and then he would say, right, so what paragraph are we on? What question are we on? You know, and that was a huge turning point, I think, for me, just being able to be completely honest. So thank you for that, Susie. You brought that up for me. Thanks, Frankie.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so basically we're at the end of the workshop because this is one of those topics where, as much as the meeting has been slow for response, it can actually go on and on, because as like Paul's just quite clearly pointed out, I've sponsored some people who have told me some stuff. And one of my things I say when I have that talk with sponsees is, just remember, I'm not a professional, and you may have to tell me something that I may have to go and speak to my sponsor around. So if you've got any bodies buried or any money buried somewhere or anything like that, or if there's any skeletons in your closet from relationships that you've there's many different things. And I can honestly say, over the past 18 years with the people who's come and gone, and not to break any anonymity, the subjects that have come up for me in sponsorship have been cheating on partners, sexual orientation, stealing while in recovery, death of people and death of spouses and children, and the list literally goes on and on and on. And I realize I'm on this journey with them. It's not my job's to be a recovering addict and share my experience, a bit like what Scott said. Well, exactly like what Scott said, not a bit like. And that is, I'm here to help to be as honest. But I need to also have some, not just compassion and empathy, which I learned from sponsees. I also have to get myself into a place of being partial, because that's my job. And then over time, you can't help but have a relationship happen. And also there's a responsibility around getting in contact with each other. Sometimes I've forgotten to call my sponsor. Could you imagine that? Forgetting to call your sponsor? But got to 10 to 15 years, and sometimes it'd be like, shit, I haven't spoken to him for 6 months. So that's why I put up because I've always wanted a sponsor to be Yoda. Yeah, that's my fantasy. Sponsor needs to be a Yoda, and that's not reality. That's why I just put up that little thing in the chat which says, call me your sponsor, or don't call me your sponsor. I like a bit of playing with words, and that's around the sense of I hear people in meetings sometimes banging on about their sponsor, and then I've been in another meeting with the sponsor who they broke the anonymity of, saying that their sponsees never ring. So welcome to NA. It's quite an exciting journey being here. and more will be revealed. Thank you for allowing me to do this workshop. Thank you for everyone who's contributed and supported. And thank you for those who sat there in silence, because I'm sure you got more out of it than me. Thank you.
Thanks, Frankie. Maybe we can all unmute and thank Frankie for